Well, that's it. We've come to the end. This is the last video in the training series. Now, whether or not you choose to join us here at Top of the Class, I certainly hope that you found this training helpful. Now, the next stage of the process is to arrange a short phone interview. This will act as both a job interview, but also as a sort of qualitative assessment to make sure that you've understood the training course that you just viewed, and to make sure that you have the know-how to be able to go out there and make a fantastic tutor with Top of the Class. Okay, so all you need to do now is to shoot me through an email listing the days and times that you're available for a phone interview over the next couple of weeks. List every single day and time that you're available in order of preference, and what I'll do is I'll get back to you letting you know which of those times I've booked you in for the interview. That way we'll have a quick chat for half an hour or so, and I'll just make sure that you're up to speed and that you're ready to go. Now, just to let you know, only about 10% of all applicants even make it to this stage. So that means that based on your application, I already feel confident that you'll make a great tutor. All I need to know now is that you know what to do from this point onwards. Now, assuming that you'll be successful at the interview, what will happen straight away after that is I'll send you out a parcel in the mail, which will contain a copy of our employment contract. It's very long and tedious, all a bunch of legal mumbo-jumbo, but you need to fill in the details there, as well as a copy of a tax file declaration form, which you probably have filled out before if you've ever had a job. I also have enclosed a stamped self-addressed envelope, so you can just fill out the paperwork and pop this back in the mail. It's already self-addressed and stamped. Now, the thing to be aware of with a tax file declaration form, I should just explain to you. Turn over the page here. If you go to question 8, you can see that there. Here we go. I'll just put a picture of it on the screen for you. Question 8 asks, do you want to claim the tax-free threshold from this payer? Now, technically, if you've already got another job and this will be your second job, you're supposed to tick no to that. Keep in mind, however, that if you do tick no, you'll get taxed at the highest rate. Whereas if you tick yes to question 8, then you'd have to be earning quite a bit before you end up going over the tax-free threshold. Just something to keep in mind. Now, one of the great things that you will benefit from when you work with us is that as an employee of the company, we take care of all the administrative obligations and legal requirements for you. We take care of your tax, your superannuation contributions, liability insurance and work cover. It's all taken care of. Now, back when I was starting out, I actually worked for a lot of the other tutoring companies too, and the way that most of them do it is they pay you as a subcontractor because it's cheaper and easier for them. But the thing is, that means that technically all those legal obligations are your responsibility. So if there's a problem, it's on you. And from memory, they don't usually tell you about that up front either. It's in the fine print. So that way you can feel rest assured now, knowing that as an employee of our company, all those obligations and responsibilities are taken care of. So that way you can focus on what you do best, which is teaching to make a difference. Now, in terms of paperwork, the only thing that you do need to take care of is your Working with Children check. Earlier in 2013, the Working with Children check laws have changed. Back in the day, you could just fill out a form and your employer would send it off and get it checked for you, and it didn't cost anything, but you'd have to do a separate check for every job that you go for. The way that it works now, and most of you probably know this already, but for those of you who don't, now the way it works is you have to go online yourself, you do your own check online, and then you go down to the RTA, show them some ID, and you pay a fee. I think it's about $80, and what they do then is give you a clearance number. So think of it as like getting a license to work with children, and that lasts you for 5 years. So any job that you go for over the next 5 years, you just give them that clearance number and boom, they can check you straight away. So look, if you've already taken care of your Working with Children check, that's great. There's a section on the employment contract where you just fill in your clearance number. For those of you who haven't had to do that yet, it's a bit of a hassle because you have to go down to the RTA and pay $80. But if you plan on working in any job where you're dealing with children, you are going to have to do that over the next couple of years anyway, so you might as well get it taken care of now. So look, once you've completed your employment contract, filled that in, filled in the tax file declaration form as well, the other part of the paperwork you need to remember is to include 100 points of JP Certified ID. That's probably the part that tutors commonly forget to include, so remember, include your ID as well. Put it all together in the stamped self-addressed envelope, pop it in the post, and send it back here to the office, so that way I can start sending new students your way. Now, when I match you up with the first student The first thing I'll do is send you a message with the client's contact details and a bit of information about the student, obviously, like you saw in the previous videos. But the other thing I'll do is send you out a new parcel in the mail. This time it'll contain 5 separate things. The first thing, it will have a whole bunch of blank pages with the company letterhead that you can use to write to your student's teacher once a month. The second thing it will contain is a few copies of the client agreement form. Remember, you've got to make sure that the client signs at the very first lesson and then send it back to us. The next thing is a whole bunch of timesheets, enough that should last you at least a term. Now remember to bring a timesheet to each lesson, remember to get the client to sign it, and remember to submit it on time, won't you? That is a very important thing. I know it seems like a very little thing, guys, but seriously, one of the biggest administrative headaches that we experience here is when tutors don't submit their timesheet on time. It causes more hassles than I suppose you realise. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people don't understand. The same way when you're out there teaching, people think that you're just working 9 till 3 and they don't get to see all the behind the scenes stuff you have to do. Similarly, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happens here in the office, and if you submit your timesheet late, it causes a lot of dramas. And the next thing is a little bunch of contact cards. So as you can see there, it's got a room for you to fill in your own contact details. I'll give you a few of them so you can leave them with your client so they can keep in touch with you. And the other thing is a couple of iron-on logos. See, I'm wearing one right now. You can attach this to the shirt of your choosing. You just iron it on. You can actually sew it on if you prefer. They recommend that you iron it and maybe sew a little bit, because if you wash it over and over again, apparently it can come off. So that's what I'll send you when you receive your very first client. Alright, so perhaps the most common question that a lot of applicants will want to ask at this stage is, how long will it take before I get my first student, and how much work am I likely to get? Now the answer to this, it varies enormously and it's very hard to predict. It depends on a few factors. For example, it depends on the time of year. We get certain peak seasons where there's a mad rush to get tutors, for example just after report cards have come home. It also depends to some extent on what area of Sydney you live, although we get a pretty good demand all over Sydney. It depends very much on your availability. If you're available more days, you're more likely to get more students. If you're only available a few days, you're only going to get a few students. Perhaps more than anything though, it depends on the subjects that you teach and the age range that you teach. You're much more likely to get more students if you're happy to teach kindy all the way through to year 12 than if you want to limit it to only high school or only primary school. Look, I'll give you the best and the worst case example that we've experienced so far. The best case example was a new grad English teacher who was happy to teach kindy all the way through to year 12, and she was available 5 days a week, and she just started with us in the first week of term 3 after report cards had gone home. By the time she got her paperwork back here to the office, I had 5 new clients lined up for her in her very first week to start. That was probably the best case scenario. The worst, I think, was he was a university lecturer in the Mount Druitt area who would only accept senior chemistry students and only on Saturday and Sunday mornings. So, I mean, that was very restrictive. I think that was about 2 or 3 months ago that he's had his interview, and I still haven't been able to provide him with any students at all. If I had to give a rough average, I'd say the average time it takes to get a new student is about maybe 2 to 4 weeks from the time you get your paperwork back. And the average students, maybe 2 to 4 per term, new students. I'd say usually by about after 2 terms, most of our tutors get to the point where they gradually accumulate enough students so that they get booked out. Usually after 2 terms, you'd be completely booked out and can't take on any more. Actually, if you'd like to know a little trick that can increase that rate, I've noticed that probably the thing that increases that rate more than anything else is whether or not the tutor provides me with a really good photo of themselves. I guess as they say, a picture tells 1,000 words. Well, what happens is when the parents ring here to inquire about a tutor, I email them through a profile about you that I create, which is kind of like a blurb about you based on your resume and any personal background, professional information that you give me about yourself. And then the parents decide whether or not they'd like to take you on as a tutor. But I have noticed if I can provide a photo that looks both friendly and approachable, but also professional, obviously, it probably increases the success rate by anywhere up to about 400 or 500%. So if you don't already have a good photo of yourself, go out and get one looking approachable but professional, and that will significantly increase that rate, probably more than anything else actually. Now, in terms of pay, you don't need to worry about collecting money off the clients at all. We take care of all that electronically. Now, assuming that you submit your timesheet on time each Sunday night, which you will, of course, we process all the payroll on Monday morning. So you'll receive an email each Monday morning with your pay slip. We'll deposit funds into your account each Monday, so you should receive it on either the Monday or the Tuesday, depending on who you bank with. In terms of superannuation, if you've got a particular super fund you'd like us to make contributions to, just fill that in the employment contract. Okay, so one of the most convenient things about this training course is if you ever need to double check anything, you can just come back to this page. It's all here. You can just watch it through again if there's ever anything you're uncertain about. If, however, you want to contact me about anything at all, please don't ever hesitate to do so. Now, so far you would have been emailing me at applications@topoftheclass.com.au. Once you, however, join our team, change that to tutors@topoftheclass.com.au. I only check the applications email account maybe once a term when we're hiring new staff. For our regular staff, tutors@topoftheclass.com.au is the email address to contact me on. When you're submitting your timesheets, however, send those through to timesheets@topoftheclass.com.au. I only check that once a week, however, when we're processing timesheets. So if you've got a query and you send it through to that email address, expect at least a week before you get a reply. So if you want a fast reply, tutors@topoftheclass.com.au is the best way to contact me. If it's urgent, however, the best way to contact me, the way that you'll get through fastest, is on my mobile. Don't call the office number, it rings off the hook all the time. I've had to turn it off while I do these training videos because it rings non-stop. Contact me on my mobile anytime. I generally am working between 6 AM and midnight, so 7 days a week you can call me anytime. Well, that's it. We've come to the end. So hopefully this all makes a lot more sense to you now. And I hope that you're feeling excited and looking forward to joining our team here at Top of the Class too. I'd just like to leave you with one little thing to keep in mind. So far, a lot of the things that we've looked at, I guess you could describe as little things. Spending 30 seconds before each lesson to touch base with the client, spending a minute or so to prepare yourself mentally before each lesson, spending a couple of minutes at the end of each lesson to communicate feedback, and a couple of minutes at the end of each month to write to the teacher, a few minutes at the end of each term to write progress reports. In the bigger scheme of things, all these little things are, I guess, well, little things. But the thing that I would urge you to keep in mind is this. Big changes are usually just a consistent accumulation of little changes altogether. Making a big impact, therefore, usually requires putting all the little things together as well. In fact, big problems are usually a case where a whole bunch of little problems have gone overlooked. So the point is, never overlook the little things, because it's when all the little things are put together, that's when we help to make the biggest difference. I look forward to hearing from you. Speak to you soon.